It's the Brad and John Show.
And this is the B Block for Thursday, March 20th. Thursday, March 20th. This is the B Block, which means we started about 7:20. Reason I mention that all the time is a lot of people listen to the show into the future on our podcast, which is bjshow.co, on our video podcast, which is bjshow.video, and that will give reference of the date of what we're talking about. Okay, John, you were going to mention something right off the top here. You had something you wanted to mention. What was that? I thought you said you had something to talk about this break.
No, I certainly didn't. But given the opportunity, I'd point out, too, that today at 3 p.m., I believe it's going to be at 3 o'clock, Scott Faughn and the boys are going to post their March Madness brackets. They're going to go through, they're going to do a selection show, and they're going to talk about why they picked what they picked. I don't think they're able to use the phrase March Madness. I think they have to say NCAA selection show. Scott was pretty intentional about that yesterday. Scott, also, thank you for the shout out yesterday on the show, Scott. Much appreciated, as always. And so that's going to be later on today. Thanks for the opportunity to plug that, Brad.
Yeah, and trademark things, just like the Super Bowl thing. You can't have a Super Bowl party because of the fact that the trademark Nazis from the NFL will come after. You know the other one, which is years ago, a guy that I bought steel from. They used to be in a company called Olympic Pipe and Tube, and I bought steel from this guy when I was making things, welding stuff together, which I still do from time to time. And I said to the guy, I said, "Are you Greek?" And he says, "Yes, I am." I said, "Are you aware of the fact that you're probably going to be forced to change the name of your company?" And he goes, "What are you talking about?" Do you know this story, John?
No. What?
You're breaking up there. The Olympic Committee has an international trademark on the word Olympic. And if you call your whatever it is Olympic, Olympic whatever it is, if you're like in the manufacturing business, if you make Olympic pens or Olympic, whatever it is, if you have any kind of a service business, and sure enough, some years after I had that conversation with him, I talked with him again, and he says, "You're right. I got contacted. They made me change the name of my company." And it's like the same thing. For example, in the United States, you can no longer have the word federal in your company name. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. Remember, I worked at the Secretary. I don't like to read my resume on the show, but I worked at the Secretary of State's office in the corporations division. And a lot of folks would come in and want to name their thing the federal whatever, XYZ, or the Missouri State whatever. It's like, nope.
And you know who was responsible for that law?
Oh, I don't know who, Brad.
Federal Express.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes, because of the fact that people, that was the thing that pushed it over the edge. The government decided that they didn't want to make it sound, because they had their turf to protect the U.S. Postal Service, and they did not want to make it sound like the Federal Express. FedEx was part of the government. So after they named themselves Federal Express, the government said, okay, that's the last one. We're not going to allow that anymore. So there's a rule about that, which I believe, like you said, with the county or with the states as well, too. You name yourself, and federal can't be in your name. Now, there's some companies in St. Louis that are grandfathered in. There's a moving company called Federal Moving and Storage, and there's, I think, a couple other federals in the St. Louis area, but as of going forward, you can't have that anymore. Okay, bunch of stuff to talk about. Last night, the wind was intense. Did you have this at your place, John?
Yeah, I was actually, I started to say with children, but that sounds like I'm pregnant. Yeah, we were outside yesterday, and it was intense, yeah.
I would say 50, 60 mile an hour winds easy, wasn't it? It was almost bad as last Friday.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, it was crazy time. The weather, and I don't know if you heard our forecast coming in this morning. Jennifer Virginski said, we could have some snow flurries this morning. I mean, when is this going to end? We have, 82 the other day? Wasn't it last week? We had 80 one day, and then Friday we had the tornadoes and all that kind of stuff, and it got real cold. And then on Saturday morning there was snow in some place. You had snow at your place. Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah, we had flurries. Yeah, for sure. And, that was on the back of an 80-degree day.
Right.
Well, the environmentalist folks would say that climate change doesn't mean the Earth is just getting hotter. It means that we have more volatile weather patterns.
Remember when they used to call it global warming? And
I do remember that, Brad. And then a lot of people like Brad would make a trite joke every day that it was chilly, and April would be like, how about that global warming?
Well, that's why
so they felt the need to specify that it means more volatile weather trends.
That's why they changed it. By the way, I heard a guy the other day talking about this. I need to go back and listen to this and watch it. The guy was talking about the fact that if you go back back into the noughties, which are the decade of 2000 to 2009, that there's a famous, now people call an infamous TED Talk with Al Gore. And Al Gore is saying, I can't remember, I should have done some more research on this because it piqued my interest when I heard this. They said that during this TED Talk, Al Gore said that by 2015, which is now 10 years in the past, all the ice caps would be melted. And we would have, and Miami would be 5 feet underwater, some crazy thing like that. Can you believe that? I mean, and it's almost like Greta Thunberg, whatever her name was, the same with her. Wasn't she saying that like by 2025 there would be gloom and doom and stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, you always have to make the short-term thing painful enough. You can't say in 100 years something's going to happen because nobody cares. You're like, okay, I don't care. I'll be long gone, you know?
So that is a comms kind of thing. You have to make things always ask.
Yeah, I mean, you want to make it. You want to make the pain. You want to make pain avoidance along with a time restraint on it too. Like you will feel this pain in a short amount of time unless you do this. You know, like listen to debt collector advertisements on certain radio stations. Are you getting contacted by the IRS? Our office is getting contacted by the IRS.
Lance is actually, you're making fun of him, but he's actually a very...
No, I didn't say it was him. I said any businessman that contacts you frequently and talks to you, it says something about how much they value their time.
John has all these...
I mean, you actually know the man, right?
Yes, I met with him before. He's a nice guy.
And, I bet he is. And you guys are the same age, right? Like deceased?
I'm older than him. I am. I'm older than him. Do you know he used to be a public defender for a long time?
No way. Wow.
Yeah. Yes. He was a public defender for a long time.
You should do an interview with him on Westplex that everybody can listen to. He should join the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. Brett, I have a Westplex question for you.
Go ahead.
I was driving the other day through the Westplex, and I saw a billboard for the St. Charles Regional Chamber of Commerce. What's the difference between the Westplex Chamber, which seems to be a regional chamber, and the St. Charles Regional Chamber of Commerce?
Okay, what's the difference between what they're doing, what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Do you really want me to go into this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's important enough because you make a convincing pitch for why the Westplex, why we need to get rid of all the the fiefdoms, and we can't focus on the differences. We need to be united as a Westplex. Oh. And then I see an advertisement for a group that appears to be trying to do that. So what's the difference?
Okay. Once upon a time, there were a bunch more chambers in St. Charles County than there are today. And you still have Augusta Chamber of Commerce, but you had just in the core area what I will refer to as the Westplex, which is comprised of the 8 different cities, including like Dardenne Prairie, Cottleville, St. Peter's, those 8 cities. The old Golden Triangle, and I tell this story all the time, the old Golden Triangle was a pyramid upside down, 70 across the top. The left leg would have been 40-64, and the right leg would have been 94, now 364. Okay, you had St. Charles, St. Peter's, you had Weldon Spring, you had Cottleville, you had O'Fallon, you had Lake St. Louis, you had, there was another one in there. There were like 7 different chambers. St. Peter's went out of business because the guy who ran St. Peter's essentially embezzled money from the chamber, and I'm not kidding, it's a true story. He had a gambling addiction, and he gambled the money away from the chamber, so they closed, and essentially the St. Charles Chamber took that over. Then you have Cottleville and Weldon Springs, which came together, and then you now have what they call the Western St. Charles Chamber of Commerce, which comprises Lake St. Louis, Wentzville, Flint Hill, and a couple other places, okay? The difference is each of them have their little areas, with the exception of St. Charles Regional Chamber. And that was a change made 5 or 6 years ago where Scott Tate, who runs that chamber, decided that he wanted to be the Regional Chamber of Commerce. So now, if you join the St. Charles Regional Chamber of Commerce, everything from Portage de Sioux all the way down to Augusta is considered to be the St. Charles Regional Chamber. My pitch is that it's the Westplex, which essentially is the core of St. Charles County. Let's be honest. Not much goes on in Augusta. You got things taken care of there by the Hoffman family. Defiance is trying to carve out their little niche, but still, it's a little tiny place that you can drive through literally in a minute. If you drive along 94 from one end of Defiance to the other, it takes you a minute to drive through Defiance. And I don't even really think it's a city anymore. I think it's just like what they call a CDP, a census-designated place. Then
And isn't that where Nick Schroer he lives in Defiance, right, Brad?
well, but technically he doesn't. He lives in unincorporated St. Charles County. The people that say they live in Defiance because that's the zip code they have and that's their mailing address. But I guarantee you Nick does not live in Defiance because technically I don't think there is a city of Defiance. I think it's like what they call a census designated place. There is no Defiance City Hall. There is no Defiance mayor or anything like that. So the Westplex Chamber, my idea and what I'm champion, and John's a member now, by the way. Thank you very much, John.
I'm a paid member. I chose to pay a membership
yes,
fee.
You didn't even take a free
welcome,
membership.
Brad.
Yes, is to essentially promote that area as one distinct entity and get away from the St. Louis stink. And the point I make is, and I will say, normally I give platitudes to both Mike Elam and to Steve Ellman. They are still trying to iron out the problems with the city. Their point is that we are part of the city of St. Louis, whether we want it or not. We are linked to the city of St. Louis. My pitch is we should dislink. Is it delink or dislink? Delink? Or
unlink, whatever.
Unlink.
Disentangle. How about disentangle?
Disentangle sounds even better. That would be something that Jill Stein would want to do. We would disentangle ourselves from the city. And my point being is, and this is marketing 101, when you travel and you're in an airport and you're sitting next to somebody, hey, where are you from, buddy? And you say, I'm from St. Louis. And the guy looks at you and goes, oh my God, is it still on fire? Are they still shooting it out in Ferguson? Did you get carjacked? Are you afraid for your life? Are there bullet holes in the arch? And, and you say, well, actually, I don't live in the city. I live in St. Charles County. They have no idea where that's at. My pitch is, if you take the population of the Westplex, which is over 400,000, and if you had a giant excavator that could pick up the Westplex and drop it in the middle of Kansas, you'd have the 47th largest city in the country between Minneapolis and Tulsa.
And that's between what city in Minnesota and which one in Oklahoma, Brad?
Minneapolis and Tulsa. Okay, 47th largest city in the country. But the problem is nobody looks at it that way. I'm trying to change that. And what I'm trying to do, and not only that, is that you specifically note, if you look at the pricing for the Westplex Chamber of Commerce, most of the chambers charge reduced fees for not-for-profit. I charge the most expensive fees for not-for-profits and government people because, you know why? They got all the money. The government's got all the money. The government can afford to pony up $500 to join my chamber. All the churches got all the money because you know what? They don't pay real estate taxes. They don't pay any taxes. So my chamber is specifically, targeted to business people and probably more than ever big or small business people because I go to the chamber meetings. I was at the Cottleville Weldon Springs Chamber just last week. If you look at their membership, there's all sorts of big companies. Walmart's a member and all these different companies. But guess what? Who you never see there, John? Guess who you never see?
Who don't you ever see there?
You never see the Walmart people. You never see the General Motors people. You never see any of those people because you know why? They just write a check. They write a check. Oh, we're a member of the Weldon Springs Chamber of Commerce. Oh, we're a member of the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce. And they have no interaction whatsoever with the chamber. So
Brad, to ask a corporate question, when you say they write a check, who is they?
The corporate.
So it's not the CEO of Walmart. It's who actually pays the membership fee.
Well, here's the problem I have. I'm a guy trying to sell advertising, okay? And
are you?
Yes, I try to keep these stations on the air by selling advertising.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
And if people ask me and we go into this all the time, who's my main competition for advertising dollars? Right now, it's digital media. It's the Metas of the world, the Alphabets of the world, which is Meta is obviously Facebook and the other brands there underneath. And
Instagram.
Instagram and Alphabet is Google and all the other associated things. I say the digital networks and the chambers of commerce. Because of the fact that the chambers of commerce had turned into mini advertising agencies. That's what they're doing. And if you look at most big companies, if you look at their budgets, and if you say, okay, where does the chamber membership fall into our corporate expense structure? Guess where that is, John?
I don't know. Where?
Advertising and promotion.
Yeah, I think so.
Because of the fact so in other words, they're taking ad dollars away from me. And matter of fact, this is sort of sad, and this came out yesterday. Apparently, we've had a failure of another radio station.
What's that?
K-Wolf is gone.
Oh, no way. Are you serious?
Yes, it was announced yesterday that these guys, the guy by the name of Randy Raley, who is the program director for the station, I think it's actually KBDZ. What are they? They're in St. Genevieve County, or where they're to the south.
I don't remember. We've talked about it before, but I don't remember.
93.1. I don't know if they bought the station or they're leasing the station, whatever, but there was a big Facebook announcement that effective immediately, that KBDZ can now be heard on 101.7, which is the old K-Wolf frequency, which means K-Wolf is gone. So what's the reason for that? I can tell you the reason for that. Because of the fact that they couldn't generate enough advertising revenue. That's the sad part of it. I mean, what keeps us on the air, what keeps this station on the air, and KSOQ and Westplex 107 was advertising revenue. And the problem is, it's a double-edged sword because of the fact that you can say that, well, the advertising revenue is not where it used to be. The problem is, you've got a company like iHeart that has like 8 stations, okay? Do you know how many salespeople iHeart has for their 8 stations?
They probably don't need many because they're a reputable brand that executes on their vision. But how many, Brad?
They have 8 salespeople. Back in the day, when I worked at the original KSOQ and we had one station, the original KSOQ, we had 7 salespeople. So the problem is that if you have less people out there beating the bushes, you have less revenue coming in. And this is the motto that most stations have gone to. This whole cluster thing, if you know the whole history of radio, it used to be you could only own one AM and one FM station. Now they changed the rules. Now you got 3 companies that control most of the broadcast stations in St. Louis, at least the major ones. The problem is the economies of scale didn't work. They thought 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 would equal like 4, and unfortunately 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equaled 1.8. So that's the whole problem. That because when you've got dedicated salespeople who are out there selling a specific brand, they're going to bring in more revenue than one guy who's out there, well, I got 8 stations you can be on. Take your pick. See what I'm saying with that, John? Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, yeah.
So anyway, did that answer your question about the chambers?
Yeah, I think so. So if you're a big company, so if you're Walmart, though, you would join a chamber of commerce and you would write a check because the chamber's reputable. It's been around a long time, and they actually have frequent in-person events where your signage can be displayed, where you can get a speaker if you want. They put out publications. They have a robust email list. So the company gets some kind of a value by tossing $10,000 a year to a regional chamber, right?
Well, maybe if you look at it that way, but the other point of that is what you just said is the St. Charles Chamber, St. Charles Regional Chamber is the largest. I think they have like 1,200 members. Scott Tate's on 97.1 advertising for the thing. I mean, he could be buying ads on our station. No, he's on 97.1, which is owned by a company that is now owned by George Soros.
Yep.
Instead, he'd be on with us, but he brags about the fact they have 1,200 members. Mike Elam told me that when you go to the chamber meetings, I haven't been to one of their luncheons in a long time. He says there's only like 80 or 90 people there. Like if you got 1,200 members, how come, if you had 25% of the membership show up, you'd have what, 300 people? There's 80 or 90 people. So in other words, your point is you have these meetings and people can see your signage. But see, the problem is you have to pay extra for that. You don't get that for free. If you want your name up on the digital display, whatever, they have like they run a video board, video board, and it just has all the number. You got to pay for that. It's, once again, your membership gets you. And the crazy thing about this is, you threw me into this, the Westplex Chamber.
No, you don't say.
Right now, we've got people. Matter of fact, there was an ad I just played, Mike Elam's ad, Matison's ad, a bunch of other people. You know what they paid for those ads for the Westplex Chamber? You know how much they paid for those ads, John?
Well, membership is free. And according to the website, you only get a 10-second ad, but those ads seem to be about 30 seconds.
They're like 15, 20 seconds. Because my motto is under promise, over deliver. If you buy a 15, matter of fact, I have a client that starts just today on Westplex 107.1, Stay Cool Climate Control, okay? They bought a 15-second package, but you know what? Somehow or another, when I recorded the ads, they turned out to be 30 seconds. I don't know how that happened. It's just one of those crazy things.
That's great, Brad.
It's one of those things. They bought 15s and they got 30s. Under promise, over deliver. But If you would you get that from the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce? No, you wouldn't get that from the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce. And I'm not dissing them. The crazy part of it is I'm trying to promote them. I talk about them. I say, if you want to join a chamber that has a lot of show social activity, the Cottleville Weldon Springs Chamber is now the hot chamber. Everybody's, they have all those events and they have this and there's elbow rubbing all the time. And matter of fact, it's interesting. Of all the chambers, they have the most number of people show up at their general membership meetings, the luncheons. That's not me. That's Mike Elam. Mike Elam goes to all of them. He's a member of all the chambers. He told me that. That is the hot chamber to belong to. So if you're like a social person, you want to go to a lot of events, you want to go to ribbon cuttings and things like that, Cottleville Weldon Springs. If you want to be like a sort of a regional kind of thing, St. Charles. If you want to be a chamber which once upon a time used to be the hot chamber, which is not so hot anymore, and Kathy Duck, if she saw me, she'd punch me for saying that, the O'Fallon Chamber of Commerce. And the one out west is, what's the guy's name? Tony Schwartz or something like that. He runs that one. It's sort of a boutique kind of chamber. They're all nice chambers, and what they're trying to do is, ultimately, they're trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do. They're trying to promote business. The difference is that I'm doing it on a shoestring. I'm doing it essentially by myself with the help of a couple of other people who help me from time to time. And my deal is I'm focusing on small businesses. And the thing that's frustrating to me is when you say small business, if you go the government designation of a small business, it could be like up to 500 employees. Okay. I call them, instead of SB, there's the whole thing they call it, SBM, a small, or SMB, small and medium businesses. I say it's MSB, micro and small business. A micro business is a guy working a business by himself, or maybe him and his wife. So when you say small business, that encompasses solopreneurs all the way up to like companies big companies that would have 500 employees, which I don't think is a small business, but that's a whole nother story, right?
That's exactly right, Brad.
You're going to regret that you asked me that, aren't you?
The segment B block will be called Chamber History. Okay.
Next segment, since this is Friday and it's not Friday, we're going to do What Would John Do? And John, I got a good one for you. And a lot of times this is stuff that happened to me. And once again, this is stuff that happened to me. So John's going to be the arbiter of if I did the right thing or not. I'm going to tell him what happened, and then I'm going to tell him my reaction after I ask him what he did. That's coming up next.